Hey there, welcome to Bible Slash Chat, Gus. Hello. Long, awkward pause.
Start over again.
No, we Gus
Start
just
over
said we
again.
turned on the video, and Gus just said, "John, we look old." And I said, "Gus, you don't look old. I look old," which is true. I look old, which is, I mean, it's because of the wear and tear of having to. Never mind. I'm just teasing.
Should we start over?
No, we're not starting over. Okay, so
You know Louisa's having a field day right now.
Oh yeah, I know. This is already posted.
Yeah, this is
we haven't
already
posted it, but it's already in her heart. We had a question about local church attendance. So we have the text, Hebrews chapter 10, verses 24 and 25. The author says, "Let us consider how to stimulate one another to love and good deeds, not forsaking our own assembling together, as is the habit of some, but encouraging one another all the more as you see the day drawing near." So there are certain careers.
This is a true question.
No, it's not a trick question. It's really a good question.
Oh, that you're asking that question.
Yeah. Wow. For everyone out there, I apologize for Gus.
I apologize too.
No,
I was like, what are we talking about? I thought we were gonna do the other one.
just pure confusion. We have a couple questions to do, which is why. Anyway, good. So
I'm very, very slow in the update.
It's all right. Yeah,
It's very early.
It's no, it's not. It's 2. Okay, so you have a situation where you have a guy or a family, a guy who has a career that causes him to miss church.
Yeah.
It could be something like he's a police officer, and
Yeah.
so he's on a rotating schedule, or a fireman on
Yeah.
a rotating schedule, or maybe even more like consistently, you have someone who's like a professional athlete.
Yeah.
Who's missing church on a consistent basis because if you play in the
If,
NFL,
if he can get us tickets, then he can come to church.
oh my word!
Is that
Now it's time to start over. No, I'm just kidding. No, so you have people who are in these these careers, in these professions, where it's really hard to get to church at various times.
Yeah.
What do you say to them based on those verses in Hebrews 10? Like, are they violating Hebrews 10, 24 and 25?
Not necessarily. I mean,
Okay.
you and I agree that there are people that come to church every Sunday who are violating this.
So what you're saying is like bodily attendance at church.
Yeah, it means
is
not
not
that,
what
yeah,
the author of Hebrews is talking about.
I don't
Yeah.
think he means
helpful.
that. But I think for someone like them and we've had people in our church who are either firemen or police officers who have to miss
Yeah.
on Sunday, or people that have jobs
Yeah.
and they have to from time to time miss because they work on a Sunday. What are we supposed to tell them, to quit their job?
Yeah.
The way that they provide for their families? Obviously not.
Yeah.
And I think that there are other opportunities for you to be at church. That doesn't mean just be there on a Sunday. Now,
Right.
in a perfect world, yeah, they'll be there, and their heart probably wants to be there, and
Yeah.
they're probably struggling with the fact that they want to be at church and they can't. But I think about professional athlete, right? And they're providing for a short time, that
Yeah.
window of time they have from the
Yeah.
time they're 22
Yeah.
to if they're blessed 35,
Right, yeah.
most likely 22 to 28,
Yeah.
and they will have to miss church from time to time. And I don't think there's a problem for someone like that to miss church, or even a police officer that has to work once a month on a Sunday.
Yeah, twice a month on a
Or
Sunday.
twice a month on a Sunday. Or maybe for a season, you'll have to work most Sundays. I think it has to do with a heart that wants to be involved in people's lives. Just because you show up to church on a Sunday morning, that doesn't make you better than the rest of the
Yeah.
people, right?
Yeah, that's super helpful.
And then there are other ways to be involved at church. There was a man in our church in Spain who actually, by career, he was a baker. And he was an apprentice, and then he was a baker. And bakers, as you know, they have to work every single day. And part of his job, sadly, was in the very beginning, as he was an apprentice, he had to work Sunday mornings.
Yeah.
And then, thankfully, by a few months after that, he actually was able to get Sundays off, or he'll start. I think he would start at 1 p.m. And it was very hard for him because he was a new believer. He felt like he needed to be at church, and we felt like he needed to be at church, but not to the detriment of not providing for his family. I mean, it was a really good job, a really good career for him, and so he he came to everything else.
Yeah.
You know, anytime the word was open, he was there.
Yeah.
Was there a Bible study somewhere to be involved? He was there. And we saw that as elders, that his heart was willing to be submitted to the word. And
Yeah.
there are other people that would come every single day to church
Yeah.
that probably were not as engaged, you know,
Totally.
with church or with the sermon or with the brethren.
Yeah.
So I think it's an attitude of the heart.
That's great. So that's actually super helpful to think about it that way. So the forsaking there in verse 25, not forsaking our own assembling ourselves together, but encouraging one another. So the
Yeah.
opposite of forsaking
Yeah.
isn't attending. The
Yeah.
opposite of forsaking would be to not to encourage.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
forsaking means you refuse to encourage the brothers. So it's a hard attitude, like you were saying, as opposed
Yeah.
to like physical presence.
Well, you
So-
notice every time this verse is quoted, it's just quoted out of context, not forsaking the gathering together. So
Yeah.
you get confronted if you don't show up on a Sunday. Say,
Yeah.
hey, you're forsaking the gathering.
Yeah.
But you can be not forsaking the gathering and forsake it at the same time by not encouraging others
Yeah,
or leaving
totally.
right away or just sitting down at the pew thinking, "Well, no one says hi to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or I'm not calling anyone to encourage them.
Yeah. So the obligation is actually a heart obligation toward the church. So
Yeah.
it's a love for the church
Yeah.
that causes you to then encourage them, which you could do and not necessarily be present every Sunday.
Yeah.
So then, what would you say to a person who said, "Okay, I'm good with that. I'm going to go to Bible study every week. I got this job. I'm not. I probably can't attend a Sunday service till I retire."
Yeah.
Would you say, "Okay, no problem," or would you say there's maybe some wisdom issues?
Yeah, there's some wisdom issue there. And I think you
because
can-
all the examples you gave were
Yeah.
short term, right?
Yeah,
Where you're an
and you can tell
apprentice.
I have not found someone who had a hard attitude of submission to the word that would say, "Hey, I actually hate working Sundays."
Yeah.
A good friend of mine is a police officer, and he had to work many graveyard Sundays,
Yeah.
and he would get off. I think it was like 10 a.m.
Yeah.
I mean, he couldn't. I mean, he couldn't make church.
Yeah.
You know, I think it was for 2 years that he did that, and I think he could make it. I think it was every other Sunday.
Yeah.
But it was very hard, very taxing on
Yeah.
him not to go to church. But the whole time he was there, he wanted to get time
Yeah.
off. He wanted to be at church.
Yeah.
And eventually it worked out where he was able to do that. And I think you can tell that from someone's heart and disposition. If you say, look, you know, that's the breaks. I have to work Sundays.
Yeah.
And I'm not really going to work on, you know, trying to get this time off. Then you see that there's a heart that is not willing to submit to the
Yeah.
word. But you know, you can tell that, right?
Yeah,
With people,
totally.
I say,
So a heart that is moving toward the Word, toward Christ, will move toward His people.
Yeah.
So even when work gets in the way, that their heart is still going to be trying to figure out ways to make that happen, so
Yeah.
they can do that. And then even like maybe career wise, finding ways to get around situations that make it hard for them to attend, whatever. Even like getting off of that shift to a different shift after you've established some tenure or whatever.
yeah, and even thinking, hey, when I'm not working,
Yeah.
a professional athlete that comes to mind, right? When I'm not working, I'm there at
Yeah.
church.
Yeah.
I'm not taking a 3-month vacation in Bali.
Yeah. Though they could.
Yeah, though they could, exactly.
Yeah. Totally.
I'm not living in the off season somewhere else to hang
Yeah.
out, you know, with my family, but I'm there. I'm actually engaging,
Yeah.
and actually I'm not I'm not being I'm not outside the church
Yeah.
during that time. Because also you can be part of the church while you're working,
Yeah,
right?
sure.
You can be encouraging. You can be disciple. I mean, now especially with Zoom and
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you can still be part of the church.
Totally. Yeah.
And you know, and for a season, not have to be there on Sundays
Yeah.
if your job demands it.
Yeah, that's super helpful. So we want to elevate the importance of the local church gathering on Sundays, elevate the importance of a heart attitude that wants to be there, and then elevate that reality, like your heart's going to move toward it, and
Yeah.
that's actually
Yeah.
the key to not forsaking, is that you want to be there, you want to encourage the
Yeah,
saints.
and what we don't want to do is we don't want to put burdens on people
Yeah,
that have to provide for their families, and they're thinking, but I have to work on a Sunday
yeah.
once a month or twice a month.
Am I going to forsake the
Yeah,
gathering?
am I not saved?
Yeah.
because of this?
Totally. Yeah.
And we would say, absolutely not. Where's your heart?
Yeah,
with
of
that?
course. Yeah. Yeah, that's super helpful, guys. Thank you. That's
Yeah.
wise. Yeah, yeah. If that this is obviously one of those topics that's incredibly practical, and it does deal with the heart, right? So the best way to maybe to evaluate your own heart is to say, is my desire to be at church? I want to be there with the people of God. I want to fellowship with them and encourage them. I have a situation that causes it to be difficult for me to do that, and yet. I'm going to try my very best to be there as much as I can. Even try to figure out ways to fix my schedule so that I can be there more. That's a heart that's healthy and good. So I hope that's helpful for you. It's not about the law or what you are obligated to do in any sense in that way, but that your heart is moving that direction. That's the key to what we want to see.
Yeah.
Well, if that's helpful for you, if you have any questions on this or any other topic, feel free to email us at info@faithbibleoc.org. Thanks so much.